Hi, today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful and delicious tart just in time for Mother's Day. As usual, have a lot of fun with it, and don't forget to check the tips because that's where I put anything I might have forgotten to tell you in the video. Have fun! Okay, let's get going with the equipment that we're going to need for today's project. First, we're going to want a food processor with a medium shredder attachment. Okay, if you don't have this, it's okay. You can use one of these guys or one of these guys if you have that. You're going to want a tablespoon, and it could be a cup or a bowl. We're going to put some ice water in here, and because we're going to want that water to stay super cold. That's the name of the game for today. Cold, cold, cold. Try to keep everything cold, and try to do it in the kitchen where it's cold too. Don't bake cookies or do something that's really going to warm it up and then try to do this, okay? You're going to want to use a tart pan. And a tart pan is cool because you can put your tart in here, and so you don't have to try to dig something up from the side and possibly ruin the edge. You can just put it on top of something. Bam, and the bottom comes out, and then you can slide it right off. It's a beautiful thing. If you don't have a tart pan, it's cool. I'm actually not going to use one today because instead of doing one big thing, I'm going to do two little ones. So I'm just using this plate because it's about 7 inches. It's about 7 1/4, which is about the size I'm going to want. And I'm just going to use this to make my circle, and I'll show you how to create this even if you don't have a tart pan. It's a good thing to know, and it's very handy, and it gives you a lot more flexibility. You're going to want a rolling pin. You're going to want some parchment paper, a sharp knife, and a cutting board, a baking sheet. If you're using the tart pan, you don't need the baking sheet, but we're going to use it. I'm going to use it. A metal bowl that you will chill, so keep this in the fridge for several minutes at least before you get going. Maybe even 15-20 minutes would be good. And then just another bowl that we're going to need for some stuff. We'll probably need, some spoons and something to spread things with, but those are all things everybody's got in their kitchen. So let me tell you a little bit about ingredients too. I'm not going to bring them all out here like I normally do because I'm trying to keep everything pretty cold. But you're going to need a stick of butter, frozen, right? So if you're planning to do this recipe tomorrow, get it in the freezer right now. And that's what we're actually going to use this grater attachment in the food processor for. If you're doing it by hand on a box grater or something, you might want to make sure your hands are cold before you start holding that butter and grating it. Maybe just run them under some cold water for a while. Maybe hold on to the stick of butter with a dish towel so it's not getting warmed up by your body heat. So keep that in mind. Okay, a stick of frozen butter, 1 1/4 cups of flour. This you don't have to worry about too much chilling in advance. The butter and the equipment is kind of the important thing. A 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and about 6 tablespoons of ice water. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to put ice in here. I'm going to put water in here, and I'm going to take out as much as I need as we go with my tablespoon measure. And that's what we're going to need just to make the crust of this. The inside, we're going to use a combination of Boursin cheese and cream cheese. If you don't have access to a Boursin cheese, or if they're all sold out at the store, you could use a goat cheese if you like that, especially like a herbed goat cheese is really nice. If you can't find a herbed one, you could mix goat cheese with some herbs you have already in your kitchen. or if you can use cream cheese with maybe some other kind of cheese. If you have a really finely grated Parmesan, that could work as a substitute too. But my personal favorite is the combo of Boursin cheese and cream cheese. If you don't know what that looks like, I will show you when we start putting it all together. And then finally, for the very top, and what's going to make it pretty, is we're going to do an assortment of vegetables: zucchini, yellow squash, and carrots. So let's get going. Okay, let's start getting our dough together. Here's where we're gonna start. I just got this cold bowl out of the fridge. I'm not gonna handle it too much because I want it to stay cold. I'm going to put my flour, 1 1/4 cups, into this bowl. And then I'm gonna take out 1 tablespoon, and you'll see why in a few minutes. I'm just gonna put that back in this bowl. And then into my flour, I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna just whisk that up to make sure that salt is distributed. Don't forget, when you're measuring your 1 1/4 cups of flour, you're gonna wanna make sure you measure that flour so it's fluffy. What do I mean by that? Don't pack it in. You want to either use a sifter first and get it fluffed up, or as you're scooping it out of the bag, use a spoon to kind of fluff it a little bit. And then when you put it in the measuring cup, don't pack it in there. Just like get it filled up until it heaps over the top, and then scrape it straight. You want to have a full cup, or in this case 1 1/4 cups, but you don't want it to be packed in. If you do that, you have way more flour than you actually need for this recipe. Okay, so we've done that. Now, oh my gosh, butter is still in the freezer. Let me go get that. I got it. Okay, frozen butter. Unwrap it, step 1. And this is unsalted butter. Don't forget, we already put salt into the flour, so we don't want double salty. If all you have is salted butter, you can probably use it and omit the salt. How much that's going to change the recipe, I'm not really sure because I don't really do it that way. Now, I'm going to turn this on and let the shredder do its work. You do have to give this a little bit of pressure to get that frozen butter to push down. Okay, done. Take this off. And here you've got this icy shredded butter. If you don't have this mixer, once again, you can definitely do it just with the box graters. And now what you're gonna do is remove about 1/3 of this butter and put it in here with your flour. And these other 2/3, what do? We're gonna toss that in with this flour to keep it from sticking to itself. Oops, I'm not gonna use my hand for that because it'll melt immediately. Toss that around with some flour. You could probably use a bigger bowl for this than I'm doing. And get it all out of here. You don't want to let this food processor run too long either because it does create heat. You want everything to be cold, at this point at least. Okay. And then all this extra butter is going to go right back in the refrigerator or even freezer. Okay, so now that I've got that extra butter in the fridge, I'm just going to toss this around and get all that butter coated with the flour. And you know, it's okay if it's not perfect. You don't want to be aggressive with this. You just kind of want that butter distributed throughout the flour. What we're making here It's kind of a cheater's version of a puff pastry. Some people refer to it as a rough puff pastry. It's just not, it's still plenty of work, don't get me wrong, but it's not as much work as doing a traditional puff pastry. Okay, so now I've got that incorporated, and I'm going to go to my ice water and take out 1, 2, 3, 4 tablespoons, and then just gently stir it in. And then we look and see if we're going to need more of this water. And we are. Let's try 1 more tablespoon. You don't want to put too much right off because you could always add more, but once it's in there, there's no getting it out. And you definitely don't want this dough to be too wet. And when it starts looking like it's a little bit shaggy, can you see what I mean by that? Like it's kind of holding together in little clumpy bits. You can test it and just take a piece of it and squeeze it. And if it holds together, you're there. But this is not quite holding together. So I'm going to actually add another like ½ tablespoon because I don't know if I need a whole one. If you take a piece in your fist and you squeeze it and it holds together, you know you're there. But you don't want to do that test too often either. Okay, 1 more test. Nope. Should have gone for the whole tablespoon right off. So here comes the other half right now. Okay. And you know, you might use a little bit more, you might use a little bit less. It's going to depend on your flour. It's going to depend on exactly how much butter you put in here because let's face it, we weren't really precise about that 1/3 measurement. Oh, and if you noticed, I had a little nub here of butter that was left on top. So as soon as we go, as soon as I can, I'm going to just shred that a little bit on a box grater. So I use up the rest of that as well. Okay. I think we're there. See, it's all holding together. So now, I don't need that anymore. I'm just going to put this out on the counter. And you know, I had a little butter that came up onto the counter here, and that's cool. I'm just going to incorporate it in here because why not? It's gonna be good. Okay. You know, this is a very buttery kind of dough and crust. You don't want to overwork this either. You don't want it to be tough. You want this to be like nice, and it's actually going to end up being really nice and flaky if you do it right. You bet. I bet you will though. Okay, so then I'm just going to form this into roughly a square. I'm going to wrap this up in some plastic wrap. Forgot to mention that, plastic wrap. And then I'm going to get this into the fridge for 30 minutes. So I'm going to grate up the rest of this butter, get it with the other butter in the fridge, get this into the fridge for 30 minutes, and then come back and show you the next step in getting this stuff done. Okay, it's been 30 minutes. I just pulled my little bit of dough out of the refrigerator. I'm going to put a little bit of flour here on my work surface so it doesn't stick. And I'm going to dust a little right on top too. And I'm going to put a little bit on my rolling pin. I don't want anything to get sticky or messy. And then I'm just going to start rolling this out into a long rectangle. If it starts feeling sticky, just dust a little bit of flour right on top of it. Don't go crazy with it, but a little bit is okay. Just enough to keep it from sticking. When you do this, you are probably going to be standing up, but I want you to see me, so I'm doing it sitting down. It's not quite as easy. Okay. So you basically want a rectangle shape. That is 3 times the length as the width. So here's my chilled butter that was tossed with a little bit of that flour to keep it from sticking. I've kept it in this metal bowl in the fridge to keep it very cold. And now I'm going to take about half of what's left here and put it right down the center. Right in, like, if you imagine that this long rectangle you have is like 3 squares, right? So you just want to cover that middle square with the butter. You'll see what I mean? Right in the center. Okay, now you're going to take the bottom part and fold it upward. And then we're going to take that last bit of butter and put it right over that bottom section that you just folded up. Try to get pretty even coverage. I mean, some of this butter is going to be chunkier than in some spots than others. And that's okay. Just if you have a real big clump, you can break it up a little bit. But you basically want to spread that out as evenly as you can. Last bit of this, then we take that top part and fold it over. So now all the butter is on the inside. And you're going to, oops, did that wrong. You're going to flip it then so that how you had it folded like this, so the folds, the rounded parts were facing you and the open parts were on the end. You're going to turn it 90 degrees so that the open parts are facing you and away from you and the rounded parts are on the end. And you're going to roll it once more into a long rectangle. You're going to want to work fast because part of the thing with this is you want that butter to stay cold. You want it to stay butter. You don't want it to melt, because if it melts, then it just works into the dough and you have a really buttery dough, and there's nothing wrong with that. It can be delicious, but you want those chunks of butter because when it's baking, that's what actually becomes like the flakiness of the dough. Okay. So here we've done it. We rolled another long rectangle, and we're going to do the same thing except without putting the extra butter in it. Fold the bottom 1/3 up over the middle and the top third down into the middle. Then take your handy dandy piece of plastic wrap that we just took off, and we're going to wrap this up one more time. And one more time into the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes. Seems like we just did this, but it's been a little over half an hour. I just pulled this out of the fridge. So let's do this one more time. A little bit of flour here to keep it from sticking. I'm gonna plop that right there. Open sides towards me and you, straight this way. The rolled over sides are facing that way. I'm gonna put a little bit of flour here on my rolling pin, and we will once again roll it into a long rectangle. And you're gonna wanna work fast, right? Because the name of the game is keep it cold. Okay, you're gonna roll it out to about 4 by 16 again. Roll the fold the bottom up towards the middle, the top down towards the bottom. Rotate it so the open sides are towards you again. Sometimes it gets a little bit of butter coming through on here, that's why I keep doing that. And then we're going to roll it out long one more time. Fold the bottom up, fold the top down, wrap it up, and guess where it's going? That's right, back in the fridge for 30 minutes. This time, while this is in the fridge, you're going to want to pull out your cheese because you want that to be room temperature. It's going to make it a lot easier to mix a couple cheeses together and then also to spread it out. So let me show you what I have. I have the brick of cream cheese. That's just regular. I use regular cream cheese. If you want to use the low or non-fat version, you can. It's not as delicious, but you know, if you like it, do it. And then I have the Bursin cheese, which comes in a small box like this. They have a couple varieties. This one is shallot and chive. My personal preference is actually the box that has the green corners instead of the purple, which is garlic and herb, but the store was out of it this week when I ordered it, so this is what I have. It's gonna be good. Like I said before, if you have a goat cheese or something like that, you could always switch that up and do whatever you really like. Okay, that's it. That dough's going back in the fridge for 30 minutes. Get your cheese out, and I'll meet you back here right away.